But right now, I'm going to say it because this is my show. I am so proud. She makes me proud. My chest is stuck all the way out as a black woman. She has really, really did it. She's did it for women and she's done it for black women because we've had women on the court, but never a black woman. Y'all, this is so important to us, especially when we're living in during a time where people think that you can't do. Yes, you can do. You can do all things through Christ that strengthens you. And so she encourages all of us to go for what we want, strive for the best, do things with excellence. Because did you all see how excellent she was? I mean, they dug. I mean, they dug deep. They was all inside of her. They was inside her stomach, her intestines, everywhere. And they couldn't find nothing but good. And so when you strive for excellence and you live a good life, like she has done. She is an example for little girls all over this world that you can do and be and have whatever you want if you follow the right rules and put in the work and live ethically and morally and upright. So I just want to say from WPTP 100.1 FM radio, we give her a shout out and we say to her, we hope and wish all the best for you. And we're encouraged when we look at you. So thank you so much for being all that you are and all that you've been for all of your life and your career. Today, y'all, we've got somebody real important. I think that this person is probably one of the most important persons in the city, in the county. We have our very own district attorney, Mr. Neal Pinkston in the house. Y'all give it up for Mr. Neal Pinkston.
Good afternoon, Dr. Woods.
Yes, good afternoon. I am so glad that you stopped by.
Oh, thanks for having me. And, on the note about the Supreme Court Justice, I attended Chief Celeste Murphy's swearing in yesterday. She's the new Chattanooga Police Chief.
Yes.
And
yes.
there was a lot of energy at the ceremony. So I think she's going to do some really good stuff.
Yeah, you know what? When I talked about African American women, this radio station, when I founded it back in 2018, one of the things that I told the FCC in my writings, because you have to write and get approved for it and give a reason why you want to have the radio station. I said that African American, Black people need to have a voice in the community, and our footprint needs to be in the community. And if we don't have a voice through our radio, through our print newspapers and those kinds of things, then we lose the very essence of what we've done and what we're doing, and we can't communicate. And when you can't communicate, there's always confusion. If you think about a war, the first thing the enemy wants to do is cut off your line of communication so you can't talk. So if we can talk and bring education to our radio station and put that out in the community, and we can engage and empower our African American people, we'll have a better community. And so this is so important for you to be here because Black people need to know what your role is as a district attorney and what you do. You're not against anybody. You're for protection.
That's right.
Of our community and to uphold the law and apply justice fairly. And that's what we need to know. You're doing your job.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's misunderstood what we prosecutors do. We're just not here to put people in jail. Obviously not. That may be a misconception, but we're here to do justice, do the right thing, protect people. And then, sometimes justice demands that people, if they're violent, that they shouldn't be in our society for a period of time, and they have to pay the consequences. But we have to do the right thing and the fair thing each and every case that we deal with, and that's a huge responsibility. But luckily, I have, in my opinion, the best staff in the state, so that helps tremendously.
Absolutely. And the gentleman that was on before we came on, that was on the Chattanooga Connection and Community Tea with Tony Boston, he had went down the wrong way.
Right.
And it's important to know that you can go down the wrong way, but you can bounce back.
Yes.
And sometimes the consequences of what we do, it may cause you to go to prison. But when you come out, if you change your life, life can still be wonderful. And he talked about that.
Right.
I went down the wrong way, but look at me now.
Yeah, and one of the things that he mentioned that I think is important to note, we've had on several occasions, we've worked with the criminal court clerk's office to have, we've hosted restoration days to where
Yes.
people could come in and deal with expungements, court fines, court costs. And people should understand that you can come to our office, to the website, and get an expungement packet to get certain prior offenses cleared from your record. And Mr. Thomas was the gentleman that owned the guacamole shop.
Yes.
uh, we can't file it for people. We can help, but there are ways to restore rights after a certain period of time if you are a convicted felon. So there's quite a few number of options that are available for things like that. In things such as like when you pay court costs, you can ask that they go towards your driving cases first, so you can hopefully get your license restored quicker.
Wow.
And so everybody needs to know just basic things like that.
Yeah, and we have a few success cases in our city where people came out convicted felons, and you've helped them not only expungement in some cases, some things can't be expunged, I know, but getting their rights back, getting their
Yes,
citizenship back, because you lose your citizenship, which means that you can't vote, but you can get your citizenship back.
that's
And
correct.
so once you get your citizenship back, you can vote again. I was listening to the young man before. Just because you're a convicted felon, it's not the end of the world. There are cases where you can get your citizenship back, and you can also get your records expunged. You just have to go to your office or go on your website and
Sure.
look up those things and do the paperwork.
Yes.
That's all it is paperwork.
And on the expungement, a lot of the times, the judge can waive a majority of the cost associated with that.
Wow.
So
So for
not all of them, but a large majority of them.
right. And I think things that are important to us, we find the means. I mean, there are ways to come up with the money to do a lot of stuff that we want to do. And if you're trying to get your citizenship back and get records expunged, that's one of those priority things
Yeah.
that you put on your list to get monies to take care of.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to talk to you about some things because some of the questions that people have asked me, I wanted I wanted to come straight from the horse's mouth.
Sure.
And back a while ago, we had a lot of gang violence. I mean, it was, just, I mean, I was afraid to walk in certain neighborhoods, and people were
Right.
afraid to come outside because drive-bys were so common. And there was a law because gang violence was so bad, not just here in Hamilton County, but just everywhere, called the RICO law. And unfortunately, for some, it meant a long time in prison. And for a lot of folks that did not understand why that law had to be used in some cases, they were angry about it because it put a lot of Black folks away in prison. But a lot of Black folks were committing those types of crimes. So tell us a little bit about the RICO law, who passed it, because it didn't come from your office, it came from our legislators,
Sure.
and why it had to be used. And in your opinion, was it fair? And are you still using the RICO law today to
The RICO law started in the early 70s. It was a federal law to deal with organized crime. You can tell in large metropolitan areas. The state of Tennessee adopted a version of that. It's been the law for several years here. A couple of years ago, they added criminal street gang activity being one of the type of establishments that could be prosecuted under the RICO law. So it's still good law. Um, we've used it once in 2018, and it was towards the Athens Park Bloods. A lot of the counts were dismissed on legal technicalities, but uh, at that time there was two gangs in particular that were shooting and killing each other, and it stopped a lot of that between those two groups, and also too in the RICO case, it solved 4 unsolved homicides that had plagued the community. So that was really important, and we can use it again in the future if the opportunity presents itself. It can't just be used haphazardly or just whenever we feel like it. It's got to be the right situation, and so but if the need arises in the future, that's something we will explore. Also, that same year, we did something else. that hadn't been done here in this county was the gang injunction in the East Lake, and it created a neighborhood safety zone. Not the whole entire East Lake community, but a part of it, and it had real good success in lowering crime in that community and allowing people to, sit out on their porch, walk down the street without fear of, as you
Right.
talked about earlier, about getting, shot at, things like that.
Right. So you all have heard it. The RICO law was primarily put in the legislation at the federal level to help solve or to get rid of organized crime. It was organized crimes that law was originally introduced and passed, but then they added gangs because gangs were in some people's mind, and it's in my mind too. It is organized. I mean, it's very organized, and it was wreaking havoc, especially in the African American community. I mean, when you have black people shooting black folks and black folks killing black folks, we should want any form of law that is available to apply fairly to, number one, reduce it, solve crimes, and get those violent offenders off the street. And I'm gonna let you answer that. Come back to that. We have a caller on the line. And caller, you're on the line. Could you tell us who you are and go ahead and ask your question?
Okay, my name is Napoleon Williams, and I just had a call that the Attorney General is on the air. Neal, Mr. Pinkston?
Yes, sir.
I saw you at Chief Freeman's homegoing at Taylor Funeral Home.
Yes, sir.
And I saw how you was able to speak to most of the retired guys that was there. I just want to say thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes you can't forget people that you come up with.
Absolutely.
But,
it's good
to
hear from you.
I want the community to know that you came there on a Gerber, and I came there on a Ed Davis back in those days. I went in the police department in 1964, and I worked major crime, dealing with those murders and things. But when you came aboard with Stan Lanzo, that group, you worked with us, Frank Newsom, the late Frank Newsom, the late Lee Mose. You remember those guys?
Yes, Sonny Mosley, all of them. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And you worked with us, Chief Ralph Cochran. When we had a case, if they need to be penalized, you was right there to do it. And want to appreciate you there for that. But also, if we had somebody that needed a second chance, you was able to do that for the community to know this. You worked with us on cases where family members would say, please give him a second chance. And you was able to work with us. But I want you to know that we appreciate you, and you did a good job as Attorney General. I worked with you the whole time there until I retired in '94. Now it's a case on the books over there in the legislature. Them police officers with those cameras on them, they said that they're supposed to be able to hold that camera for 30 days.
Right.
But Attorney General, that case need to be revised because you know this. You might want to have that case passed till you get some more evidence. Is that right?
That's correct. You're exactly right.
Well, we need to deal with that case.
Yeah, that particular bill, I think now is what they call it, is dead for the rest of the legislative session.
Right.
So I don't think it got enough traction and didn't go anywhere. But I also wanted to think, do you remember when you and Mr. Mosley came out to the cold case unit and talked about old cases?
Right.
Yeah, I want to. The cold
You
case.
were there.
Yeah, I was there, and
That's
they
right.
remember that. So I wanted to tell you thank you again for that. And anything you need, Mr. Williams, you let me know.
I appreciate you, and I hope that you get reelected. And I'm gonna tell all my friends at the church everywhere, you've been a great Attorney General, and you need to go back to that seat that you held. Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Donut Williams. Thank you.
All right.
I do want to emphasize today that we are here talking about Mr. Neal Pinkston and his capacity as our district attorney. And no, we may get callers because callers can call in and freely say what they want to say. But we are here to talk about how and what you have done as our district attorney, because people need to know.
Sure.
And they need to know all the intricate details to some degree on why certain things are necessary, because they really don't understand your role.
Nope.
You have done an awesome job. And I just want people to know that.
We have prosecutors in juvenile court, general sessions court, the grand jury, and criminal court. And there's 27 prosecutors in the office. And on average, there are between 50 and 60,000 cases that come through the Hamilton County criminal justice system. We're not, as I said earlier, we're not just there to put people in jail. We're there to help victims. We're there to help defendants in various ways. We've have prosecutors in what are known as recovery courts or drug courts, in sessions court and criminal court, where we know these people don't need to be locked up, but they have certain needs that need to be addressed. And we also have mental health court, which I think will expand in the future, where a lot of individuals that get arrested have serious mental health issues,
Right.
and they need treatment, medication, therapy, things of that nature. And so they're better off in the mental health court than they are in jail, not getting the treatment that they deserve. So,
right. And I want to say this too. Sometimes the district attorney is not popular on either side. You're not popular on the victim side. You're not popular on the defendant side.
right.
But you have to apply the law just and fair.
Yes.
And sometimes the chips don't land in one or the other's favor.
That's right. That's right. We have to apply the law equally. And prosecutors aren't big politicians. We have to go into court and talk with facts and evidence and how that applies to the law. We can't make shallow promises to the community
Right.
that we can't follow through with. So a lot of our work is in the courtroom, and we're also I know you and I have discussed this before. We're ethically forbidden from talking about certain things in the community.
Yes.
So it may look like at times we're not very visible or talking a lot, and I think we can improve in some areas about that, but there are some things that we just can't talk about.
I want to say this, and I may get hit in the back of the head, and that's okay. I've been hit a lot, probably immune to being hit in the head, but it has to be said. I remember when you were getting a black eye because so many black folks were getting put in jail. Gang violence was at an all-time high, a lot of killing, homicides, and that kind of stuff. And you had to apply justice fairly. And a lot of folks went to prison. And a lot of black folks was angry because they didn't understand. Now, there has been some cases of some deputies beating. I'm going to say this. I can be what you call unprofessional a little bit. Beating the crap out of black folks while handcuffed. And you had to apply the law fairly in those cases. And you had to apply it fairly, and the outcome wasn't good as some of the folks would have wanted it to be, which meant you had to come up with a fair, I guess you would call it a fair judgment of what is it called? I guess indictments is the word that I'm looking for on some deputies. And some folks did not like that. And I want to say, when you are in your position, it can't be, because I'm your friend, or because I'm a Republican, or because I'm a Democrat, whatever you are. If you're the district attorney, you have to apply it fairly. And some folks got angry because, I'm going to say it, it's my opinion. This is my opinion. Okay? Elenora, all by myself. Some folks got upset with you because you applied the law fairly and got indictments against some deputies that did some wrongful things to people of color while handcuffed. And they're upset with you because you did not turn your head and do what they call the good old boys would do and act like it didn't happen. You applied the law fairly. Yeah, nobody's upset with you when you're putting African Americans in jail. So because you applied the law fairly, don't be upset with our district attorney when some white folks got to go to jail too, and they happen to be law enforcement officers.
As the elected district attorney, but also as a prosecutor as well, you have to apply it equally and fairly because the Constitution requires it, the law requires it, but also our oath requires it. So
Yes.
we can't turn our backs on any situation where the law is being violated.
That's right.
And as long as I'm the DA, we won't.
And I had to say that because for 8 years, you have ran as district attorney, and everybody have loved you on that good old boy side. And something happened, y'all, that made some of the folks, the good old boy network, get upset and then put somebody in the race. See, I know you're not dealing with politics, but I'm dealing with politics right now a little bit. You can't love a person when they're doing everything you like, and then stop loving a person because they did something you didn't like, especially if that person did something you didn't like that was right and just. So part of the reason why you have opponents in this race is because you did something that was just and right, and some of the folks did not like that. So I'm telling y'all right now, we're going to deal with what's just and what's right with Mr. Neal Pinkston. And that's why he's here on my show today, because I know of the works that you've done, because I've worked with you and I have seen you prosecute my people. And I've not been mad at you because it was the right thing to do. And he received the Thurgood Marshall Award because he applied the law just and fair. Just and fair. And I'm not mad at you. Nobody should be mad at you.
Good. I'm glad.
And I'm not mad at you because you got some indictments on some deputies that beat black folks while handcuffed. And I know they loved you before you put those indictments on them. They never ran anybody against you. You was probably considered a good old boy. I know you don't want to hear that, but they liked you. And now, because you have did the right thing and took color out of the equation, all of a sudden, there's somebody that's running that don't have, let me stop right there. All of a sudden, there is some confusion. I'm going to say it like that. But we're going to get back to what you're doing and have done as a deputy before I get in some trouble.
Sure.
These are my words. Elenora Woods. It is not the words or the opinion of the radio station or any organization that I'm affiliated with. None. These are my words, and I speak words of wisdom. These are my words. So don't put me and associate me with anybody I'm working with, for any organization I'm over. Do not. This is me and my opinion. On the record, it's recorded. I said it. Now, let's talk.
Well, I started in the DA's office in 2003, and I was promoted up to the top assistant in 2007. Did that for 7 years and then became the elected DA in 2014. Experience is really important when you, and these discussions are good. Anytime we can inform the voters and they can make a informed decision on who the most qualified candidate is, that's a great thing for our city and our county. Experience is really important being a district attorney because you have to manage over 60 employees. As I said, 27 prosecutors, and we get all types of cases from theft, shoplifting, DUI, all the way up to, individuals who've committed multiple murders. So you have to have a lot of trial experience too in front of juries. I've worked on 10 different death penalty cases. I've had somewhere over 40 homicide trials that I've been involved with. I prosecuted the Woodmore bus crash, if you remember.
Yes.
The I-75 tractor trailer driver who killed 6 people. But when our first responders or law enforcement are injured in the line of duty, I prosecuted a lady who killed a rookie police officer. She was drunk driving, and he was in the road.
Remember that,
working on
on Hamill Road.
Yep, that's right. And then it's been 11 years now. An escapee from Colorado murdered one of the city's police sergeants over off Brainerd Road, and we
I
prosecuted
remember
him.
that.
He's doing life without parole now. So, but I say that to talk about my experience that I have, but also to show that kind of what you're talking about. We try to treat everyone equally. Sometimes justice demands people go to jail for a long period of time, and sometimes it demands that they don't go to jail at all. So that's doing justice is hard. Seeking justice is hard, but sometimes it doesn't make everyone happy. But that doesn't mean that justice wasn't served.
That's right. That's right. And I'm gonna ask you a question about the NAACP, but we got a caller that's
Okay.
on the line that want to ask a question. So, caller, state your name and go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Mr. Pinkerton. My name is Deborah Henry, and I'm a hometown person. I moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. I moved to Ohio, but I would like I am very interested in what is going on in Chattanooga, and to encourage you about still running. You have a passion for people, and I have a great respect for you. You might not remember it, but one time I was staying in a high crime uh, neighborhood, and I called you.
Right. Right.
You took your time off, and you came, and you told those people if anything happened to me, that you would prosecute them to the fullest. I will never forget it. And I just wanted to thank you for having a passion for people. You are the kind of person that needs to stay in that office because you do not discriminate on a black crime or white crime. All of it. If it's crime, it should be prosecuted. I wanted to ask you a question since I'm no longer there. I have applied for different things. You know, I have my voting rights back. And every time I apply for something, you know, they go through this background check.
Right.
I haven't been in trouble in 30 years, 30, 35, something along that. But this FBI record still shows. Can you give me any advice about trying to get that expunged? Because I love working with children.
Yeah.
And
On our website, ChattanoogaDA.com, there's a place where you can go to get the expungement packet, and there are forms you fill out, and then we if the crime is able to be expunged and certain time periods pass, then we can submit that to the court, and that they can expunge your record if eligible. But it requires you to take the first step to fill out the expungement package and send it into our office.
all right then, sir. Thank you, and I wish you so well. I'm coming. That's my home, and I want to come back home. I wish I was there to help you campaign.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay, you have a blessed one.
All
You
right.
too.
Thank you, Miss Deborah.
All right, bye bye.
So before we took that call, I was saying I wanted to ask you something about the NAACP. I want to know, why do you think the NAACP is an important organization, and why did you go ahead and join? What's up with that?
Well,
Tell us personally why you did that.
well, because the NAACP's goals are much like any other members of our community goals. They want safe communities to live in. They want decreased crime, but I think most importantly, they want to treat everyone equally under the law.
Yes.
And that those are principles that I live by. My prosecutors live by, and I participated in their criminal justice forums. Usually in the summer, we haven't done them in a while due to COVID, but it's important. The same reason everybody should be treated equally. And I mean, who could be against that principle?
Okay. So you're saying that it was important for you to be a member because the principles that the district attorney office should live by and be governed by have some of the same principles that the NAACP, being the largest and oldest civil rights organization in the world. And I'm not a spokesperson for the NAACP. I'm just simply trying to understand, number one, why a person who deals with law, who makes decisions on people's lives in the area of law enforcement or law in general, would not want to support America, or the world's largest and oldest civil rights organization. Why would that be a problem if you were in your seat? If you said, I can't stand behind it?
Because in this county, in this city, as the elected district attorney, you work with and interact with people from every walk of life in this county and city, of different races, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different class. And so, we're here to protect everybody, but we also have to treat victims, witnesses, defendants. We also have to treat them fairly, because when they come up to the courts building, it's probably not going to be a happy experience. And so anytime someone's liberty is at stake, we don't want to treat them unfairly or imprison them for the wrong reason without evidence. So those principles should be honored and respected.
And with you receiving the Thurgood Marshall Award from the NAACP, which is one of the highest honors a citizen can receive, definitely in law enforcement, do you think that the NAACP is against law enforcement or police officers?
No, not at all. And actually, a lot of the minority community have commented to me that the whole defund the police and against the police is not what the community stands for. And they like law enforcement, and they support crime being reduced, but they just don't want to be taken advantage of or treated unfairly.
Right. So in that case, civil rights organizations are there to make sure that the law is applied equitably and fair. It is not there, or civil rights organizations are not there to keep up tabs with how many black folks are killing black folks. It is a civil rights organization, and they are there to make sure that civil rights are protected.
Yeah,
correct?
And, yes. And remember also, too, that there were a number of white individuals who helped help start the NAACP.
Miss Mary Overton was the founder of the NAACP. She was a white socialist and a journalist. And the reason why the NAACP was founded was because black people were being hung in trees. There was too many black folks being hung in trees in this country. That was the basis upon which the NAACP was founded. And yes, there were white people at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. At the very beginning, Ida B. Wells, Mary Overton, and
it just shows, like we were discussing, that those principles that almost everybody believes in, those principles of treating people equally, fairly under the law.
Frederick Douglass. I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Yeah. So those aren't just exclusive to one race or one type of people.
That's right. And I think people should know that throughout this whole county, we have people of all diverse backgrounds and ethnic groups, and even throughout the country, especially in law enforcement, that support the NAACP. And I'm not here to speak on behalf of the NAACP. I'm just here simply to say, if you're going to be my district attorney, if you're going to represent all people, then that is the one organization that you should stand behind, because their sole purpose is to make sure that people are treated fair and that their civil rights are protected. And so it would behoove all people to join and be a part of the great movement to make sure that all people are treated fairly and just. And it would be a wonderful day when the NAACP doors could close, because everybody would be being treated fair and just. And until that day comes, that organization is probably one of the most important organizations in the world. And I thank you for being a member, paying your dues, and also working with the civil rights organization in this community and making sure that justice has been applied, no matter what ethnic group you are, no matter who you are, so that we could prevent a Ferguson. We can prevent all of these things if we have the right district attorney at the helm of this city. And that's what you have been for all people in this city, especially black folk, especially black folk. And we want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Yes. And so, is there another call on the line right now? Okay. Gang violence. I know that we've had our share of it. I think Chattanooga was in the top 10 or something, a dangerous place to live in America. And I know you worked very hard on that. And you said something about this quarter that due to not only what you've done, but the police work too, because you all work hand in hand, that it's come down 3% and the shooting has come down 60%. Could you explain that?
Yeah, it is all attributed to good law enforcement. Statistics provided to us by the Chattanooga Police Department. The first, if you compare the first 4 months of 2021 to the first 4 months of 2022, shootings are down 60% and homicides are down for the quarter 20%. And we also saw from 2020 to 2021, where all across the nation crime was skyrocketing. Homicides saw a 3% reduction here in this city. Now, some may say that threes, that's a small number, but it's moving in the right direction.
Yes.
And shows that how good our law enforcement is and our prosecutors, and shows that unlike New York or San Francisco or Los Angeles, Portland, we don't have those same quality of life issues that they do in those other larger metropolitan areas.
I also want to talk about, and it's dead because I heard you just tell Donut it's dead, but it's so important that body cams and video footage from scenes of incidences where police have interaction with people, that those video footages and body cams remain available for a length of time so that the case can be completed and it can be fair and just to both parties involved, both the police officer and the person that had been apprehended. And so there was a law that was just about to go down that would allow the police department or law enforcement as a whole to erase the video footage and to erase the body cam footage. And your office worked very hard with getting that information out. And we contacted the legislators, said, hey, you all got it in the subcommittee right now. And I understand from what you just said that it died in the subcommittee. So it's not up for grabs for the for the Senate or the House to vote on. Is that right?
That's right. And it's important that all that body cam, dash cam, ring video that I know a lot of people have on their homes is all preserved because it tells the story of what happened. And you don't have to have an eyewitness describe what happened because you can sit there and watch it, watch it unfold and make up your own determination. Not only does it shows crimes happening, but we've seen situations in the office where people have complained about a law enforcement officer using excessive force, but the body cam, the dash cam shows the exact opposite happened. So it's a benefit to everybody. And it's prevalent. It's so prevalent now. It shouldn't go away and should be preserved.
And if he was not the type of district attorney that wasn't interested in applying law fairly and equally, it wouldn't have bothered him. But it bothered him that they were about to pass a law that will allow them to erase it after 30 days. Because in your experience, that sometimes you don't even get the case to maybe 30, 60, 90 days later.
Yeah,
and it wouldn't help you treat the case fairly, right?
Right. And, sometimes it takes years for crimes to be solved. And so there has to be a good way and good system. And I know the city CPD has that in place to preserve all the video evidence. And then we can provide it in a timely manner to the defense attorney, sometimes to the community, so they can see see what's going on. And a lot of times it's helpful too, if the community, sometimes a false narrative can be pushed about a situation, and the video could show something totally different. So anything that helps the community understand what their leaders, their elected officials are doing, or show, capture crime or not a crime, is important for everybody to be aware of what's really going on.
And that's so important because in the police or law enforcement agencies, they have these fraternal orders, or these, they're like little gangs to me, because they stick together no matter what. They're like on the sword, and so it's important that even though we know they have that brotherhood, that they could be brought to justice with these video cams. And so who in the world in law enforcement would want videos erased to not give a fair representation of what has happened? If you want to apply justice fair, who would want that? So I was disturbed that it was even introduced for the subcommittee, the Judiciary Committee is where it was. The Judiciary Committee had it for review, and I'm going to find out who even introduced it.
Yeah, I don't know who introduced it. It was no one from this county, and there was no push for it from anyone in this county, and it just kind of appeared and caught a lot of people's attention.
Yes.
And so, as citizens have the right to make their voice be heard.
I just like to say kudos to you, because you were on top of it. And that's what experience does. Wisdom, experience. He was on top of it. He already knew about it. He began to disseminate that information out across this county, so that, because I didn't know anything about it. Right. A lot of times what happens at the state level, we don't even know about it, but you were on top of it.
And I knew that, bills like that and they have an impact on people, and when we may not realize its future impact.
So this is probably the last question.
Sure.
I got two more questions. They just recently passed at the federal level, legalizing marijuana. Yes. Can you explain what that means to us in the state of Tennessee, all the way down to little Chattanooga, Tennessee, what that's going to, and if people have been arrested, will that mean that these people will have their records cleared, or if they're in jail, they'll be released? Can you kind of tell me a little bit about that?
Right now, just the House of Representatives passed to legalize marijuana on the federal level. The Senate hasn't taken the issue up yet. As we sit here today in Hamilton County, possession of marijuana is still a crime. It's still illegal. However, over the last several years, and I've spoken to the defense bar at length and with judges, the hemp was legalized, and hemp marijuana essentially come from the same plant. Mm-hmm. And generally, to prosecute somebody for marijuana, you need a lab report from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation that shows it in fact is a illegal substance. Due to hemp being legalized, it's becoming increasingly harder for crime labs to distinguish between Delta 8, Delta 9, hemp marijuana. And so the TBI a couple of years ago asked us to be very selective on what type of marijuana cases that we sent for them to request, because they may not be able to do anything with it. So it's still illegal. However, we're at the point on the low level, simple possession is just not really something we can prosecute due to the inability to determine if it's illegal or not illegal.
And it's expensive to send those cases to the lab. Somebody has to pay for that.
Yeah,
and that's going to be the taxpayer.
That's right.
So,
and you got to think about it too. Think of all the police departments, sheriff's departments in the state of Tennessee. They all, when they need testing, they send it all up to TBI in Nashville to be tested.
One place.
Well, there's a lab in Knoxville and Jackson, but a majority go to Nashville. And, like prisons, we want our worst, the most violent, reserved for, those that kill people, those that harm children need to be in prison. Prisons, there's limited space. We don't want people that commit low-level offenses to be jailed. And I think the same with TBI. We want, and I know they do, that we want their resources and time spent on the thing that helps make us the most safe.
Yes. So you all heard that. So you've
Now,
got
in the future, the if it becomes legalized federally, I'm sure here in Tennessee it would soon thereafter follow.
Mhm.
But I would not be surprised if it's legalized across the nation over the next several years.
Mhm.
It seems to be that's the way the citizens are headed.
Okay, and that's a district attorney. I know that it's important to prosecute crimes. Um, is it any of your business in your line of work to be bothered? And I do have people that have mental conditions in my family. But is it any of your business to take tax dollars to put into your department to deal with people, to help folks who have drug addiction? Or is that somebody else's line of work and your money that's coming to your department need to be spent on solving cases and crime? Why would anybody want to take money that can be used in, say, a bullseye program that you have that you can tell us about in a minute, and take that program away and use that money to help people who have a drug addiction?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
yes. In the no, it's not the role of a prosecutor to help uh, give counseling to somebody with a drug issue. That's why the courts have established the drug court that I talked about, and the mental health
Yes.
court. Those the county and the judicial system are establishing these types of recovery courts for those very issues that you talk about. The prosecutor's resources should be prosecuting crimes, solving crimes, and making sure that people also though are protected from the system, that no one treats them unfairly.
Right. So y'all heard that. So in his office, as in his capacity, in his mind, money should not be used. Taxpayers' dollars should not be used in the district attorney's office to help people with drug addiction. That is a job for another agency, perhaps, that get the fund, and that's their priority, to use that money for people who have drug addiction, but not as a district attorney. So now that we got that out the way, because some people just don't know the job of a district attorney,
Right.
and the role. So I want to clear that up.
Sure.
Tell us about the Bullseye program. I know you've probably said this over and over, but why is it important to keep that program?
It's you could have a whole show dedicated about this one topic, but I noticed when I was elected to be DA and for the last 8 years, there are times that people I myself have sent to prison will come to the office and meet with me and ask for help clearing their prior record, finding a job, finding a place to live. But it also expanded into another area where you have oftentimes people who witness violent crime want to come forward, but they're afraid for their own safety if they do.
Right.
And part of the Bullseye helped relocate people who were in danger due to their testimony. Sometimes when people, I know one occasion in juvenile court, a family couldn't make it due to transportation reasons, and Bullseye helped get them to court and help them deal with those issues. And it is also an educational component where they were taught at Silverdale about reentry skills once you're released from jail. How do you not come back here? How is it not a revolving door? And so from prosecution, there are issues that citizens encounter that are unique to the DA's office, and so that's why we have to have. That's why that has to be a focus and needs to continue.
And this is, I know I keep saying the last, but I got to do this because I didn't check this off. There was a many homicides that occurred in the West Side Project, and we have not solved that case. I'm saying this, I'm asking this question because I know that the Bullseye program could be a very big help in this situation. There are people that witnessed it, that saw it, that know who did it, but they are afraid to come forward because they feel that they're going to be killed or murdered if they come forward. So, and I know people put up I think it's $20,000 on the line. Who don't need $20,000?
I think people in the Grove Street community raised 10 through donations, and I think Mayor Kelly and the city matched it, so it is 20,000. That's a
What's
pending.
wrong, Neal?
People are either they're terrified to come forward, or someone's encouraged them not to, which that's an issue in many homicide investigations. But I do know that, without speaking to any case specifics, I do know that the homicide department's working very hard and have been for a long time on that. Actually, I had conversations with two of the detectives within the last week or so about that case. So it's in their forefront, and they'll get there eventually.
Is it that there's this distrust or mistrust rather between the African American community and law enforcement, and there's this feeling that they won't be protected? Because you've seen it with Bianca Horton,
Sure.
where she was coming forth as a witness and they murdered her on her way to her car because she was going to be a witness and she didn't have protection. So I don't know if it's because she refused to be relocated, because I think that might be it. I'm not sure. But that is, I mean, gang violence is real and people know each other. Everybody know each other in the Black community, just about. If you don't know them directly, you know them indirectly. And the street talk. So people know who did it, but they won't come to law enforcement to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
So speak now and tell them, if you know anything about this case, first of all, who should they come to? Because they call, the lines are recorded. You'll hear their voice. How can they come and tell you something? Don't get no credit for it, because you get credit for it and come to court and testify, your life is in harm's way. Yeah, what do you want to tell everybody that's listening? Because I think last week we got 30,000 people that tuned in to WPTP.
Sure. I think there are good things in place through the DA's office, but also the city of Chattanooga to protect people when they come forward with information. I think we've done a much better job of that over the last decade or so. But it's also important coming forward because it helps the truth be revealed. And as you know, we have a cold case unit out of the DA's office. There are 200 unsolved homicides in this county going back to the mid-'70s. And there are people all over this county that have information that could help solve those. And, at least half, if not more, of all the unsolved homicides victims are minorities. Mm-hmm. And, times change, relationships change. People that know about that should come forward, because can you imagine? We've sat with many families where their loved ones been murdered for 20 years, 40 years, and they have no answers. And then finally, due to the cold case unit, they do have answers, and it provides a lot of information for them. And I'm not going to say it provides closure, but it helps make our community safer and helps families not grieve so much. So that's why it's important, if you have information, even if you don't think it's that significant, it could be highly significant to the investigators.
I want to thank you. My cousin was abducted on her way home from school, and we never found her. And you have been working on that cold case.
Yes, the Tanetta Carlisle. Yeah, the cold case unit. We've done lots of work on that case.
Yes, I want to thank you for everything that you've done for our family and helping to try to find and close that case. But I know that we have cameras everywhere. Then I know we got to go.
Sure.
We have cameras everywhere, just about on every street, in Black neighborhoods in particular, every which way. On the west side, because this bothers me. I was born and raised in College Hill Courts. That's where I was born. It bothers me. My folks lived in the Elks. We call it the Elks. It's the Golden Gateway now. And I live in College Hill Court, the Project. We call it the Project. And then there's the Ridgeway by the highway. With the cameras, I'm disturbed that either we didn't have enough cameras or there wasn't any cameras. And we weren't able to detect who came to the scene and who left the scene using the video footage from those cameras, because when the young lady ran over the officer, those cameras were able to follow her car all the way to her driveway and pick her up. Well, she didn't answer the door the first time, but they were able to find out where that car went using the cameras all the way to her driveway. So in this case, were there not any cameras anywhere that anybody had that they could follow people leaving the scene and coming back?
There is camera footage that was taken from that particular investigation. Yes. Um, Sometimes cameras change angles, things of that nature. But I also think that that citizens have video footage, not only of that case but others, when people record with their phones. But again, they have to provide that for it to be useful and helpful.
I want to say that back when I was coming up, if you knew of something, you saw something, you have evidence about something that could solve a crime. If you didn't tell it, then you were what they call part of the crime. You know, you were an asset. You were enabling the criminal, and there was penalty for that too. So if you have evidence and you know it can solve a crime, it is our duty. It is our civil duty, our civic duty, to turn that evidence over, to bring some type of closure for these families that have lost their loved ones. And that's my appeal to anyone out there that knows about this particular case on the West Side, to get with you. And is there a hotline number that you can give right now where people can call? And you don't have to use your cell phone. You all go get a pay phone where your name not attached to it, because I know you're scared they're gonna chase it back to you. Go get one of them type of phones and call the hotline number to give information. If you have names, they can question these people, because I know from conversation in the street, people know exactly who did it. What number can they call?
423-209-7470 with information on any unsolved homicide. They can call and leave a message.
That is a hotline number that was put in place by your administration. I want to thank you for that. Y'all, we have a hotline number. If you don't feel comfortable with using your telephone, go buy one of those $9.99 phones and crank it up, put the money on it, and use that phone to dial area code 423-209-7470 and leave the information. You don't have to have your name affiliated with it. You don't have to have your phone traced back to you or any of that. You can get a phone, one of those pay phones, and use it to call that hotline number and give our district attorney some help with solving the West Side mystery. And we're going to put that number up on our website. You can listen to this over and over and over because we record all of our shows. You can go to WPTP 1001 FM.com and listen to any of our programs that we've had in the past and today. And also join us on our social media platforms at WPTP 100.1 FM radio on YouTube, on Facebook, and Instagram. So we're out there, you all. We're giving the information. We're working with our law enforcement and anybody else in this community to better our communities, to educate, to engage, and empower Black people and African American people and people of color here at WPTP 100.1 FM radio. I want to thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. You're awesome.
Have a good weekend.
Y'all have a great weekend. And remember, go see a pastor, a church tomorrow. If you don't want to go in person, you all can go online and visit somebody online virtually, but go somewhere and let the Lord know how good of a blessing he's been to you and your family. Until next Saturday, y'all have a great weekend.